The time the keg ruined the party. Being a junior in high school had its perks. Some of us had our driver's licenses, others had fake IDs, and when we put our limited brainpower together, we managed to have a pretty good time. But with every wild party came some kind of sacrifice, usually from someone like me, who ended up holding the bag when things went south. This one particular party was already shaping up to be a disaster before it even started. The host, who should have been handling things, couldn't drive his car. Something about points on his license or expired insurance. It didn't matter. Bottom line, he didn't want to drive. And since we were juniors, figuring out party logistics was somehow our responsibility. His brilliant idea? We had to pick up the keg from the store and bring it to his house. The catch? I didn't have a car of my own, and my friend only had a learner's permit because he'd been held back a grade. So, we had to use his car. We drove to the store, IDs in hand, ready to pull off this impressive, and illegal, purchase. But to our surprise, the keg was already paid for, and the guy at the store didn't even bother checking our IDs. He must have known we were underage but didn't care. He was just happy to make the sale. As he loaded the keg into the trunk of the SUV, he chatted us up about some game he'd watched the night before. Honestly, he seemed more like a guy trying to hang with the cool kids than a responsible adult. So, with the keg secured in the trunk, or so we thought, we hit the road. The hardest part was behind us, or so we thought. Halfway to the party, we hit a bump. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the back. My heart stopped, and I swerved the car to the side of the road. In the middle of nowhere on a country road, we were frozen. We thought we'd broken a bunch of beer bottles, but then reality set in. We didn't have bottles back there, just a keg. The entire back window had been smashed. Shattered glass was everywhere, and the keg was sitting there like a guilty party, having blown out the window with its weight. It was a scene straight out of Pulp Fiction, where neither of us knew what to do next. We had two options: bring the car back and face the music, or ditch the car and risk even bigger charges like underage drinking, grand theft auto. There was no winning. We couldn't exactly drive around with no back window and a rogue keg rolling in the trunk, so we did the only thing that made sense at the time. We drove back, slowly, stopping at every stop sign like our lives depended on it, which, let's be honest, they kind of did. Every minute of that 10-minute drive felt like an hour. We were in deep, and all we could do was pray we'd make it without getting pulled over. When we finally made it back to the house, we went inside, already bracing for the worst. The host, already a few drinks in, pre-gaming for the party. At first, I thought maybe his buzz would make him more forgiving. No such luck. As soon as we told him what happened, he lost it. He started going off about how it was our fault for not strapping in the keg properly and driving too fast. He said we had to pay for the keg and the window. Like this was all on us. That's when I snapped. I told him to F off. I mean, seriously? He was out of his mind if he thought I was going to pay for the whole party just because he couldn't be bothered to drive his own car. He let us borrow the car in the first place because he couldn't drive and I was doing him a favor. Now, I was supposed to shell out cash for his screw-up? No way. The whole situation just proved what kind of guy he was. A guy who didn't take responsibility for anything and was happy to throw his friends under the bus when things went wrong. I wasn't about to let him make me the villain in his disaster. In the end, I walked away without paying a dime, but I learned a lesson. The keg may ruin the party, but people like him, they'll ruin your life if you let them. When was the moment you stopped being delusional in your last relationship? I didn't realize how much of a simp I was until I let a girl handcuff me to her desk. She looked like she could call me baby girl and put a sparkly purple stick in me and I'd say, thank you. I would kind of watch her from afar. I definitely looked like a creep, until one day something shifted. When our history teacher handed us our test results, I noticed her looking at my 100. That day, she spoke to me for the first time and I nearly exploded. It was just asking me to explain why she got 15 wrong answers, but it didn't matter. She spoke to me. Her best friend sitting next to her looked at her a little funny for talking to me, but it didn't matter, because every day since, she would make small conversations with me. I low-key felt like I was getting groomed, so I was excited. One afternoon, she asked me if I could help her study for the next quiz. I agreed and we scheduled a day to meet up at the library. The day of our study date, I started talking to her but she slammed down a pencil and told me, chop chop, just do the work bro. I let her talk to me in any way she wanted to because I figured that she'd fall for me if I kept doing her work. But she was so unbothered I could tell it'd take some work to get her attention, especially since she kept sending these thirsty pictures, and kept replaying NLE Choppa TikTok videos. She would spend the entire sessions on her phone. She ranted about skinny nerds on the phone with someone she called honey. Honestly, I thought she was telling her little sister all about her new crush. Me. I was too scared to ask her about it though. When I finished figuring out all the answers on the study guide, she ripped off a piece of paper. Then she wrote down her Canvas login and gave it to me. She said, I'm sorry but I'm bad at remembering stuff. Would you mind taking the quiz for me? I'd really appreciate it. I was so down bad I said no problem. If you saw the gray sweatpants she was wearing you would have said yes in a heartbeat too. And it helped that she kissed me on the cheek before she left. Sometimes I noticed she'd wipe her mouth right after, but I assumed it was because she smudged her lipstick. So, from then on, I would log on to her account and do her Canvas quizzes for her. It was difficult because our professor changed things. No one had the same questions for each quiz. It was really tiring to do everything and I almost gave up. Though it was worth it because she would touch my leg. She'd ask me for my opinion on her bikini pics, and I was even important enough to be introduced to her friends. I met her best friend who I'll call CC, keep her in mind, and her other two friends. CC was usually quiet but her other friends were very loud and very vocal about being friends with me. Eventually, my crush asked me to do their Canvas quizzes too. Me still thinking with the wrong head, agreed. Though I quickly learned my lesson when it took 7 hours to complete all 4 quizzes back to back. The second I finished it was 4 a.m. and I passed out. The bad thing was I woke up the next morning with a Canvas notification of 0 on my own quiz. That set me back 15 whole points and I couldn't believe I let my grade in a prerequisite get so low. The worst part was we had essays due coming up and there was no way I could do all of them. I had to act fast and look for websites that would do the work for me, like ChatGPT and Quillbot to write the essays. However, My biggest problem was these Canvas quizzes. They could detect when I cheated or used any extensions. I needed something that wouldn't get me caught and would answer every question correctly. It wasn't until late at night that I found an AI called StudyBuddy that Canvas wouldn't be able to detect. I installed the Chrome extension and started doing everyone's homework. I was shocked when it only took me 45 minutes instead of 7 hours to complete everything now that I was using the AI. I could finally sleep at night after StudyBuddy gave me the answers to the multiple choice questions. When the girls all saw their grades, they were more than happy and thanked me every time they saw me. Though some days my crush wouldn't bat me an eye, and I felt like I was going nowhere with her. To get my mind off her, I went to the library to get some studying done when all of a sudden, CC came to see me. She came with some homework and asked if I could help her with it. I didn't mind, but I expected her to give me the silent treatment like my crush did. She was genuinely asking questions and reciprocating. She learned quickly too, so we finished in an hour. After that, she invited me to grab a slice of pizza as a thank you. The entire time we just smack talked about everyone on campus. Then CC did a massive lore drop when she said that my crush has had a boyfriend for 3 years. This hit me like an 8-wheeler truck. CC noticed that I was surprised, so she asked me what was up. I confessed that I've had a crush on her best friend for a long time now. It's literally why I've been doing their homework for free. CC was surprised to find out that her best friend wasn't even paying me. She said that's the only reason she was cool with me doing her work. She felt bad and asked me how the hell I did all their homework. I told her it wasn't that much of a problem since I just used StudyBuddy AI. When she asked what it was, I showed her how quickly it automatically answers the questions. I helped her download the Google Chrome extension on her MacBook right after. She bought me an extra pizza slice for putting her on, and said she'd use it when taking her midterms. Afterwards, she promised me that she'd cut off my crush. I thought that was pretty cool of her, but realizing I was being played left a sour taste in my mouth. CC saw how I looked like I was about to crash out, so she gave me the perfect idea. The next day I did my crush's work and screenshotted her proof that I completed the assignment. Then at the last minute before the due time, I unsubmitted her assignments. I left a comment for the professor saying, "I'm not doing this poop. You're a divorced renter professor. You graduated from Purdue University online while your wife got her vertebrae blown out." I even wrote a letter to our professor, telling her that my crush kept peeking at my table during our last quiz. When the professor responded, I got my crush in trouble for 15 different quizzes. This meant she would make her have to repeat a semester. You don't know how satisfying it felt to see she got a 0 on her midterm while CC got a 100 after using StudyBuddy AI. Oh, and I sent her little boyfriend all the love letters she sent me. The one where she claimed she'd touch my little man if I finished one more assignment. Later today, as a thank you, I'm heading to CC's dorm because she's gonna be my wingman. She showed a picture of me to her final roommates and she said she'd hit. Exposing cheaters always leaves a sweet taste on my tongue. Or maybe that's the girls I'm finally gonna get.
My golden child sister disrespected my late wife and demanded a family heirloom. Now, she's accusing me of ruining her wedding because I told her I am not attending anymore. I lost my wife, Lily, 2 years ago in a drunk driving accident. Losing her shattered my world, and I've been trying to pick up the pieces ever since. My family, though, has never really understood what I've been going through. To be honest, they never fully accepted my marriage to Lily in the first place. When we got married, my grandma gave me a necklace that's been passed down in our family for generations. It's a tradition that the women in the family get it when they marry, and it meant the world to me because it felt like one of the few times my marriage to Lily was actually recognized as real. Since Lily passed, my sister Emma, who's always been the golden child, has been eyeing the necklace. She's getting married soon and recently mentioned how, now that I'm not really married anymore, I should pass it on to her. That was hard to hear, but what really broke me happened last week at a family dinner. We were talking about her wedding, and she made a joke about setting me up with one of her fiancé Luke's friends. I felt uncomfortable but tried to brush it off. Then she said, "At least Lily won't be there to haunt you if you hook up with someone." I couldn't believe she said that. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there. Later, when I told her how hurtful it was, she rolled her eyes and told me I was being too sensitive, and that I needed to stop being so depressing and lighten up. Then she brought up one of her bridesmaids, Sarah, who had a crush on me even when Lily was alive, and suggested I have some fun with her at the wedding. As if my wife hadn't mattered. I told her there was no way I could come to the wedding if that's how she felt about Lily and my grief. Things escalated from there. Emma accused me of being dramatic and said I was ruining her big day over one little joke. My parents took her side, saying I should just let it go and show up to support my sister. They even mentioned again how I should give Emma the family necklace, saying that since I'm not using it anymore, it should go to her now. Since then, I've been bombarded with calls from my parents, Emma, and even Luke. They've all told me I'm selfish, that I need to move on and stop holding on to the past. Luke even said I should be grateful my family didn't disown me when I came out, as if I owe them something for barely tolerating me. Now, I'm questioning everything. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to go to her wedding after all this? Part of me wonders if I should just suck it up and go, but another part of me can't believe how little my family seems to care about Lily, or me, for that matter.
A dad hits my daughter in the face with frisbee, so I haunted him years later. Background: many years ago when my daughter, MD, was 6, we went to a dad/daughter activity at her school. MD had recently lost her 2 front top baby teeth and the permanent teeth were just breaking through. This will be relevant to the story. One of the dads, who was, and probably still is, a bit of a know-it-all jerk, JD for Jerky Dad, was attending with his 2 daughters, one in MD's grade and an older 10-year-old. JD decided to teach his 10-year-old daughter how to throw a frisbee. He did this while standing in the middle of the crowd of about 80 people. And this wasn't any regular frisbee, it was the heavier and larger competition frisbees. JD wanted us all to know that he was on an ultimate frisbee team and that his skills were amazing, in his own mind. Well, one of his errant throws hooked hard to the right and caught MD square in her mouth, knocking her off her feet. I ran to MD and picked her up, getting blood from her busted lip, very minor injury, all over my shirt. The blood made the minor injury look much worse than it actually was. A crowd gathered to see what had happened. JD came up and said that MD had walked into the throw. I let him know that I had seen the whole thing and that he was trying to throw it to his older daughter who was standing about 30 feet to the right of us. I asked JD why he thought it was a good idea to throw that frisbee in the middle of the crowded area since he didn't have the skill to control it. And, of course, he had nothing worthwhile to say. Here's the petty revenge. I whispered in my daughter's ear to play along. Then I made a big show of examining my still sobbing daughter's lip. With many still gathered, the conversation went like this. Me, it looks like you knocked out her 2 front teeth. JD, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Did I really knock them out? MD, right on. K looked at JD and sobbed out a pathetic yes, and then she showed JD the gap in her teeth. She immediately buried her face in my shoulder again, except this time she was only pretending to sob in order to mask her laughing. By the way, MD is an adult now and is still just as devious. I saw JD again for middle school graduation. He commented on the frisbee incident, which I had just about forgotten. Now it was my turn. Me. Do you see she's got braces? You knocked out her baby teeth. Her orthodontist said without them in place the permanent teeth didn't have a guide to follow and they came in really crooked. That, of course, was all nonsense that I made up on the spot. JD was once again speechless. MD is now an adult and her teeth are perfect. JD is probably still a jerk. I know I already said that above, but it feels so good to say it again.
I was invited to my goddaughter's wedding where she put me in a special room and assigned me to babysit children, so I gifted her a ton of hate and backlash from the public. I was so happy to see a wedding invitation in my mailbox. I pulled it out and a little note fell out on an index card, but I looked at the invitation first. It was truly beautiful and I immediately stuck it to my fridge like the work of art it was. It was addressed to my husband and me and I was beyond stoked. I love weddings. I tend to get teary-eyed and smile until my face hurts at the joy of new beginnings and all the love. I was even a wedding singer. That's how much I love them. I picked up the note card and read that, and while my husband was invited, I'd be in another room helping to babysit all the children there with several other female invitees. There's a special room for children at the church and that's where I'd be. For everything. I'd still need to dress for a wedding in case I wind up in any photos, but I'd be taking my reception meal with the children and I'd be with all the kids for the ceremony. Then there was a link for their gift registry. Oh, and the meals for my husband and me would be $100 each, and we have a link to pay when we digitally RSVP. The first problem here is that I am disabled at 50 years old. Legally, I use oxygen. I use a walker when I need to walk long distances. I sometimes have to give up the walker entirely and use a wheelchair. I'm not proud of it, but there it is. I could happily sit in a room and look at kids, but I'd be pretty useless to prevent a fall or stop a child from choking or anything else that would require me to move quickly. Second, my husband isn't the one who has been friends with these people since childhood. I am. Why would he be invited to watch the ceremony and be part of the reception but not me? My husband said he'd happily watch the kids and let me attend the wedding and reception, but the invitation specified that only other female invitees would be watching the kids, so I doubt they'd let him. Is this a normal thing at weddings now? Do you pick guests to babysit other guests' children? Should I call them up and explain my health situation even though they already know it and visit me during my multiple hospitalizations a year? I hate having to pull the health card, but honestly, what were they thinking? I confess that I feel offended and hurt that I'm nothing more than a babysitter to them who are expected to pay for my supper and babysit for free. Would I be wrong to simply tell them we won't be able to attend and to find another sitter? And if we don't go, do we still send a gift? Update. I spoke to my friend, the mother of the bride, and I'm pretty upset. I've been bawling for most of the day. She called and said that they were getting a lot of backlash from the wedding guests. No one wants to pay $100 for dinner and only 3 of the women asked were okay with babysitting. I told her I understood that the guests were upset because it's just tacky to 1, be asked to pay, and 2, be told you are invited but only to babysit. I told her I would not be a babysitter, at all. No, just no. She got mad and brought up how we were lifelong friends. She said I'd be helping them more by babysitting than I'd be helping by simply sitting in a pew watching. I reminded her that I couldn't physically help it all due to, being legally disabled. She said they completely understood that and expected me to simply supervise the other sitters since they trusted me most. Again, I told her that I felt it was insulting to be voluntold that I'd be babysitting and that I had no desire to do that, especially not dressed in formal wear. Then we got to the truth. She said that she didn't know if I'd be in a wheelchair that day or require a walker. That's fair. I don't always know which one I'll need. She said that they wanted everyone in the pews for the wedding video and me sitting in a wheelchair would make me stick out and ruin the video/photos. I said, if I need a wheelchair that day then I can move to a pew and my husband can put the wheelchair in another room or back in our car. I may not even need it that day. Then she says, well, space is limited in the pews. You would take up the space of 2 people with your purse and oxygen tank. I said, no, I would not. I wouldn't bring a purse in and the oxygen tank either sits on my lap or between my feet. Then she said, well, having you and oxygen in the photos would be distracting from the other people. And there you have it. Words were exchanged and she hung up on me. I haven't been removed from any social media yet, but I fully expect to be. I already feel awful for being this way at only 50 years old. I didn't choose this. I didn't want this. If she thinks it's awful to have it photographed, just imagine living with it. Which is what I told her before she hung up on me. I'm devastated. Just devastated. Update 2. I'm not in the greatest headspace. I don't think I've ever been less okay. Honestly, I did not register to RSVP or communicate with them further, until another invitee got in touch with me and said that the mother of the bride, a person I thought of as basically my sister, was bad-mouthing me into the ground. I explained my side and our mutual friend was livid. They told the mother of the bride and the bride that they were wrong to want to exclude me because I might or might not need a wheelchair and would have oxygen on my face. I could remove the oxygen for photos, they told her. So, the mother of the bride sent me a message saying, and I quote, "Well, if you're going to be butthurt about the aesthetic we want to achieve and try to turn other guests against us, then you can effing come and sit in a pew. But not in photos, and we'll try to get the videographer to do edits to the wedding vid, too. But I won't forget how you made this difficult for us." I replied, "How did I make it difficult other than existing?" She replied, "You clearly told about what I told you regarding your wheelchair and oxygen, and she's telling everyone else. We're getting a ton of hate," I said. She asked me if I was attending and I told her no and explained why. I didn't lie to her. I told her exactly what you said. You didn't tell me not to tell anyone your reasons. If they're valid reasons to you, then you shouldn't care who knows. So, I'm now blocked by the bride, the mom, the dad, and the groom. A friendship I've had my entire life is over. A goddaughter that I helped nurture and care for is just gone now. We paid for the bride's car insurance, gas, and cell phone all through high school and college because we wanted her focused on just her studies and not a part-time job. Her parents got her a car but insisted she work, but her grades fell when she did and we helped her. And this is how they thank us. This is how they repay our kindness. I guess I'm a great friend when I'm giving money, but I'm not good enough to be seen. I felt like a burden my whole life and this has set me back so far. Last thing I've heard about them is a lot of visitors are not coming. Some of those people are the ones my husband and I helped. My fiancé took the chance to bring me back to earth and told me that I am not attractive, so I brought him back the ring and ended our engagement. My fiancé and I have been together for almost 5 years, engaged for 6 months. We've never had issues where one of us was mad for a long time until this, and he, my mom, and friends think that I'm overreacting. Some nights ago, I had a dream that I ended up accidentally dating a famous actor. We've both had dreams where crazy things happened, and we told each other about it. I told him in the morning, and we laughed about it. However, he commented on how my dreams are always extremely delusional. I asked him to elaborate, thinking it would be funny, but instead, I was met with a comment about how I wouldn't be capable of pulling someone half as attractive as said actor, let alone him. I was taken aback, and he doubled down and told me to be realistic. Most men wouldn't even look my way because I look like I'm already taken and stopped looking interesting some time ago, and now even more with the engagement. I told him that I didn't want any men to look my way, but the implication of his words hurt me. He told me it was irrelevant because we're together and I wouldn't leave him, and to stop being offended over something I asked, and left. For the record, my weight, hair, and general appearance have stayed the same, and I'm low-key high maintenance, so this isn't me letting go or something. I called my mom for reassurance, and she agreed I was overreacting. I called my friends for the same purpose and was met with the same response. I feel hurt because I love my fiancé and find him attractive, and I know other people do. I am grateful he chose to be with me, making me value him even more. I thought he thought the same about me, but he thinks I wouldn't ever leave him because I can't pull anybody. That makes me feel like he doesn't value me as I do. And worst of all, I may be wrong about how I feel, but I can't control it. Am I overreacting? If so, how can I manage this so this doesn't affect us in the long term? It's been almost a week, and he is still short with me, because I look miserable about a petty thing. I just want things to go back to normal. Update: I got the courage to reach out to my other friends outside my closest circle. They were shocked and told me not to brush it off. My birthday fell in between these dates, and I decided to celebrate it by bar hopping in my city. It went great. My ex was invited. We were still together at that point, and was sulking because I got external attention, which I shut down. Finally, what happened with my ex? After talking with my therapist, I explained my feelings to him again and reiterated that those comments would not be tolerated if we were to continue in the relationship. I also said we needed counseling as a couple because this could stem from insecurities from both sides. He did not apologize but rather justified his actions under 3 arguments. Yes, these came from a 28-year-old man. I do look less interesting, and it's unfair to use my birthday as an example of me attracting anyone because I was catfishing as a younger woman, as the girls I invited are mostly 22 to 24. Adam Driver, the actor I dreamt about, is taller than him. We're both 5 feet 7 inches, and he is insecure about it, so dreaming with people taller than him is disrespectful and emasculating. Even if, his words, I'm objectively attractive. Ever since I started therapy, I became cocky and more demanding, so he took the chance to bring me back to earth. All of this shocked me. I felt like the man I had been with for the last 5 years was not there anymore. This was a complete 180 from what he was before, and I do believe is a mix of slipping off the mask after the engagement and the fact that he changed jobs to a male-dominated corporation. Those new friends did give me a weird vibe regarding their stance on women and equality. Regardless of what prompted this change, I ended it. I returned the ring, packed a bag with my essentials at his place, and left while he threw a tantrum. He was uncooperative in returning some of my remaining stuff. He sent things in trash bags full of glitter and wouldn't let me enter his apartment anymore. He also sent me all of the Star Wars movies with Adam Driver in them, broken and destroyed. This made all of the pain I felt almost immediately disappear, which felt weird because I did love him, and it was a long relationship, yet I grieved for like a week only. I counted my losses and accepted some things I won't get back. I blocked him and haven't heard or seen him since. Thank God it's a big city. My immediate circle of friends was cut off, as they valued going to a wedding more than my well-being. I'm Elsie with my mom and am supported by my dad and siblings. I've continued therapy and did a Friendsgiving celebration, and I'm bracing myself for the holidays with my family. I'm mostly okay, relearning to be on my own and to validate my feelings. I am currently debating whether to send a thank you card to Adam Driver.
My family warned me I was dating a gold digger and I ignored them. 10 years later, I see they were right. I met my wife, Annabelle, when we were in college. My family was lower middle class and I was hustling to make sure student loans didn't kill me post-graduation. At first, everything seemed great. She was truly my rock through some really hard times. I struggle with anxiety and depression, as well as imposter syndrome. She had her own struggles too. I thought we fit well. My parents and sister always told me that while she seemed nice enough, something was off. This only increased when Annabelle dropped out of college and shared her plans to become a housewife/som one day, so she didn't need a degree. Back then, there was no guarantee that I would have a high-paying job, but I also didn't mind her staying home with our future kids. Then, I got an offer for my dream job. 6 figures, company car, travel, the works. They'd also pay for me to obtain my master's, something that seemed out of reach considering I was drowning in student loan debt. I could finally move out of my parents' house and get one of my own. I used part of my signing bonus to buy an engagement ring for Annabelle. Because I began dating her prior to the money, I never imagined that she was with me for anything else. She loved me when I was a broke college student. We had planned our futures back then. How was it different? My family tried to point out the red flags. Annabelle planned an over-the-top, expensive wedding. She wanted the biggest house she could find. My signing bonus was drained rather quickly and I was worried about not saving enough. I constantly told her to slow down. We don't need the best of everything. And she would, for a while. Then it'd pick up again. We had 2 children together, who are now 8 and 4. The big spending got worse when they came along. But again, I was okay with it. I was making good money, we could afford it. Annabelle grew up in a similar situation as me, so I figured she just wanted to spoil the kids. Then, I got laid off from my job. It wasn't out of nowhere. The field I'm in has slowly begun to dwindle over the years. I stayed on as long as I could, but at this point, the company is going under. Annabelle was worried when I relayed the news, but I informed her that we had our savings, and we'd be okay until I found work again. I was hired at a new company in a similar but different field within a month. The catch? I am making significantly less. It's enough to live off of. We can stay in our house. But things need to change. I pointed out that our kids can't go to private school anymore. We can't take multiple lavish trips a year. No more frivolous spending. She wasn't happy, but again, I gave her grace. It's a big adjustment, even for me. Just 2 months after I started at my new job, Annabelle came to me and said I don't think I can do this anymore. I was taken off guard and we had several discussions. That amounted to her taking the kids to be with her mother while we took a break. I already knew our marriage was over. No one can come back from a break unscathed. Sure enough, a few weeks after she moved out, she told me she wanted a divorce. She claimed we had grown apart, said I worked too many hours at my last job and I was never around. While it's true, I did work a lot. I was home every night for dinner. We had all of the weekend together. I traveled often, but she always came with me up until our oldest started elementary school. She never complained about a damn thing. In fact, I once said I was tired from working a long week and I felt guilty that she was home alone with 2 kids, but she assured me she was happy. I asked her several times if it was about me losing money. She denied it up and down. She married me so young and needed to see what was out there. She put it all on me. Naively, I told myself that this was what happens when you marry your college sweetheart. You grow apart. I didn't want to believe that my entire marriage had been a lie. Within 2 weeks of filing for divorce, she was with someone new. The reality came crashing down. She tried to play it off as they just so happened to meet, but they moved fast. She was moving in with him within 3 months. They were engaged before our divorce was even final. This guy is a surgeon. He makes 6 figures a year. I don't know if the cheating began when I got laid off or before. I suppose it doesn't matter. We're divorced now. Due to my schedule, I only see my kids every weekend and I hate it. I regret not making Annabelle sign a prenup as she got half of everything. My family is aware that she's moved on and I know they have their suspicions, but we've never spoken about it. In the 3 years since the divorce, they have never uttered "I told you so," even though I deserve it. I went from loving Annabelle to despising her. I love my children very much, but I hate that I wasted 10 years on a woman who only wanted me for my money. I should have so much more saved, but she either squandered it on useless junk when we were married or took half in the divorce. God, I hate her.
My husband blew up at me in our gender reveal and accused me of deleting our son, so I am erasing him in our lives and leaving him without a child. I have been with my husband for 5 years, and married for 3 of those years. Our marriage was perfect and we were so happy. It felt like our entire life was perfect. Church on Sunday, loving husband, beautiful home, all of it. A few months into our marriage I became pregnant and my husband and I were overjoyed, and so was the rest of our family. My husband was especially happy after finding out our baby was a boy, as he'd always told me he wanted at least one son. I even started to try to attempt to repair my relationship with my mother so our son could have a relationship with his grandparents. I had originally cut off most contact with my mother due to how she treated my brother when he married his husband, though my brother said he was right with my decision to try to get her back in my life since he still has love for her and my baby was her first grandchild. However, our son ended up stillborn, and it broke me. I fell into a depression and even at one point considered taking my life, but my husband was there for me during all of it and we got through the grief. Our marriage felt stronger than ever and life started slowly feeling beautiful again, even if it no longer felt perfect. About 5 months ago I found out I'm pregnant again, and then found out soon after that we're having triplets. My husband and I were over the moon, and he was the most doting and loving husband. Since we had always said we wanted 2 to 3 children, we agreed we wouldn't try for any more children after this. Because of our and our family's excitement for the triplets, we decided to throw a baby shower and gender reveal party. We trusted my brother with the genders of the triplets, and he bought some confetti cannons with the colored streamers inside. The baby shower went wonderfully with my parents, in-laws, my brother and his husband and their daughter, and tons of friends and extended family. It was like a dream come true, and I was so excited for the gender reveal. I don't care what the gender of our babies was, I just wanted healthy little babies, but my husband was clearly excited for potentially 3 sons. When the time came, my husband and my brother all shot a confetti cannon, and all 3 shot out pink confetti. I was so excited, and so was my brother, but my husband screamed at the top of his lungs and hit the table in front of us, hitting it so hard that it actually broke. He screamed at me that I was supposed to give him at least 1 son because I unalived his first one. That's when I burst into tears. I had been so broken up about our son's stillbirth, and a part of me had felt it was my fault. And now my husband was the love of my life, telling me that it was. My brother immediately stepped in and tried to get my husband to calm down, but my husband shoved my brother. So my brother instead pulled me inside, where I cried in the living room while my husband's mother tried to calm him down. I could hear him screaming outside about how 3 daughters is too many, how he doesn't want 4 kids but he also wants a son. Ever since that moment, my husband has hardly talked to me. He's been sleeping in the guest room, and when we do interact he's clearly upset and mad and tries to argue with me. I tried to talk to him about it and asked about how he'll be with our 3 daughters, but he spat at me and told me he will provide them shelter and food, but he isn't interested in daughters and doesn't plan to have a close relationship with them. That sealed the deal that I wanted to divorce him, and I cried myself to sleep last night. Earlier today I confided in my mother and mother-in-law about all this, but they told me I can't divorce my husband just because he wants a son. I don't want my daughters to grow up in an unloving household where their parents constantly argue and their father doesn't love them. The moment my husband said I deleted our son, I felt as though I lost all love I had for him in an instant, and I don't want my daughters to be in that kind of household. However, both my mom and mother-in-law say it's just natural for men to want sons, and that at least he isn't saying he'll mistreat them. They treated this as absolute fact and acted as though I was just a silly little girl who didn't know anything. I felt incredibly small and stupid. I don't know what to do. My mother and mother-in-law make me feel like maybe I'm overreacting to my husband's behavior, but my brother says this is not normal, as he and his husband are both men who absolutely love their daughter. I'm also not sure of what I'll do with myself if I divorce my husband. I don't work, and I'm not sure how I'll be able to find a job that can support me and 3 babies all on my own, or how I'll make time for all of them when I have to work. I feel so lost and helpless. Update: I decided to take action immediately and went to my brother's house. We talked for hours through the night and came up with a plan. I am going to divorce my husband. He's shown the kind of man he is, and I don't want to live in or raise daughters in that kind of environment. I'm going to move in with my brother and brother-in-law during all this. He and his husband have a nice, large house where I can have my own room and a nursery for the triplets. I originally worried that perhaps myself and 3 babies would be overwhelming or a burden to him and my brother-in-law, but they assured me they would love to have us here. I knew everything would be okay when my brother even offered to have a baby monitor put in their bedroom so he could help if more than one of the triplets woke up during the night. My brother-in-law has a nice, high-paying job, and my brother works from home, so I will have a stable environment, and my brother will help with his nieces. My own niece is excited for us to live with her. The current plan is I will live with my brother and brother-in-law for a while, and once my babies are old enough where I feel comfortable putting them in daycare, which my brother-in-law has offered to pay for, then I can try to find a job of my own where I can save up money and eventually move into a nice place of my own with my daughters. I'm so thankful for my brother and brother-in-law. They truly feel like angels. My brother and I are also going to go no contact with my mother. My brother and I discussed her behavior with us growing up, how she treated him when he came out and also got married, and how she's treated me these past few days. We decided this was the best course of action, as we've given her many chances in our lives to become more stable and kind, but she's always refused them, and we want our daughters to grow up in with a loving family. When I knew my husband had left for church this morning, my brother-in-law, and I went to my house and got all my important things such as documents, clothes, and things that are special to me, as well as all the baby things. My brother-in-law's mother watched my niece while we did all this. She's a kind woman and has offered to be a grandmother to my own babies, which I happily accepted. I will admit that I cried. I've cried a lot lately, but mostly happy tears. Because my brother and I didn't go to church, my ladies' Bible study group texted me and asked if we were all right and if we needed anything. I texted them back and told them the truth and what happened, and they were all horrified. They told me they support me and are proud of me for taking action, and are now even planning a bake sale at the church to help raise money for me and my babies. Also, apparently when my husband went out to lunch after church with his men's Bible group, one of the other members is husbands to one of my friends in my Bible group, and when he found out what happened, he yelled at my husband so much that he cried. I got a little bit of joy out of hearing about that, not going to lie. My pastor even called me and asked if I'm okay, and he let me know that I'll always have people who support me at my church, which I'm very grateful for. After my husband came home from church and saw that most of my stuff was gone, he blew up my phone, but my brother-in-law called him for me and said that he would pay for my husband to get therapy for his grief over our son, and also told him to leave me alone. My husband has not tried to contact me since, and he has yet to give my brother-in-law an answer for his therapy offer. All in all, I'm so grateful for my brother and brother-in-law. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without them. I'm hopeful for the future, and while this isn't the kind of future I imagine myself or my babies, this is definitely the best one I can currently give them. They say it takes a village, and my babies will definitely have a village full of love and support.
My parents disowned me 5 years ago for false accusations. Now they want to talk. I am bi. When that happened, I was still in the closet and didn't tell anyone about my ex. Our relationship. My ex and my family were my whole world. I thought I had a good relationship with my parents. I had inside jokes with my dad. Shared hobbies with my mom. I also had a good relationship with my sister at the time. I didn't drink, smoke, or be late most nights. I wasn't perfect. But I wasn't that troubled teenager of a boy that didn't even deserve to be hurt. In the summer, my ex and I planned to sleep over at his parents' house. I know it was a stupid decision to sleep at his parents' house when no one knew about our relationship, but I was 19, stupid and hormonal. His parents hurt us and his father entered the room and physically hurt my ex-boyfriend. When he tried to hurt me, his wife grabbed him and I quickly grabbed my clothes and ran away and went to my home. In the evening of the next day, my father entered my room and grabbed my hair while my mother was crying and telling me if I had forced myself onto my little sister. Later on, I found out my ex-boyfriend told my father I was forcing myself onto him, but at the time I didn't understand what she was saying, and I told her of course I didn't, but my father said that I was just a mistake and dragged me out of the house and told me that if I didn't run away from him now like I ran away from my victim house yesterday, he will turn himself into the police because he will be taking my life. I tried to call my ex-boyfriend to make sure he was okay, but he didn't answer. When I called my grandmother, she told me I should be ashamed of myself and I should surrender myself to the police, and that she would support me if I did this. I tried to ask her what was happening, but she said that she couldn't bear to hear my voice and hung up the phone. I went to the house of my close friend Angle. She wasn't at home, but her father was. I did not plan to talk to him, but I could not stand it and cried in front of him. He listened to me and assured me that I had a place in his house and to not worry. The next day, my uncle sat me down and told me that he spoke to my father, and he told him that I had forced myself onto my ex-boyfriend and forced him to do things he didn't want to do. Had it not been for his parents discovering us, I would have continued the act. I was shocked and showed him the messages that were between us. I don't remember what happened, but I was crying hysterically and Angle was holding me and my uncle calling the ambulance. After I got out of the hospital, we spoke with a lawyer and reached an agreement with my ex-boyfriend that he would confess to my family that it was a lie, otherwise I will file a defamation case. All the evidence was against my ex-boyfriend and he accepted, but it wasn't enough for my parents because they sent me a legal disowned letter. 2 days ago, my parents sent me a long message, asking to talk. They said my sister died, and they wanted me at the funeral on Friday, and to talk. I told them to get lost and to give the funeral location. They told me either I talk to them or they won't give me the location.
My sister-in-law and her family made a disgusting mess in my house and said that I needed to clean up after them, so I swept them off of my property and made them homeless. Friday I dropped off my children at school and the older brother's wife was there at drop-off time. She followed me because when I stopped to pick up some bits and pieces she confronted me in the store parking lot. She was apologetic and wanted to make amends. I was having none of it. She was desperate, she said, because if she missed one more week of overtime she would lose the project as she is the lead and has to stay there to supervise. Her husband can't change his hours, so it has to be her who picks up her 6-year-old. She said it's not defensible to have a grudge against her 6-year-old for a passing comment she made. I told her it wasn't a passing comment. She laid the blame on me for our sister-in-law leaving biohazards in my home. She said she just wanted everyone to get along and was hoping to de-escalate the situation. I asked her to ask sister-in-law to help her out, and she said she had refused as she has 3 under 7 years old and can barely cope with them. I asked her to ask the youngest wife as she has her mother staying with her, leaving her with time and energy to pick up her children, and they clearly preferred each other over me. She said she wanted to concentrate on the early memories of her own child instead of helping her out with her 6-year-old. I told her to suck it up and find a solution with those she considered family. Then I went about my shopping. In the afternoon when I went to pick up my little one she was there again, and when we got out of the pickup line she followed me all the way home. So I blocked my driveway by parallel parking so she wouldn't be able to park and harass me at my door. I sent a text telling my husband to let me know when he would be home so I could move the car. Not being able to park didn't stop her as she parked on the side road and came to my house. She rang the bell, but I wouldn't open up the door. She went round the back and knocked on my back door telling me that I couldn't avoid her forever. We were family. I told her through the window as I didn't want her to push her way through if I opened the door, to leave or I would call the police for harassment. She left. In the evening someone rang our doorbell and I went to open it. It was my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They wanted to come inside and apologize, so I let them in. They started by telling us how much the events of the last few days had affected them. Then they said sorry, and asked me to get back to normal. My mother-in-law said that sometimes you have to put up with some negativity from family as life has a lot of ups and downs. Everything can't be roses and rainbows all the time. My husband stopped his mother and said, then why do my wife and I have to be the only ones on the receiving end of the negativity? When would they hold his sister and the others accountable for their behavior? They tried to guilt-trip me into helping out with the 6-year-old as her mother and I had previously been on good terms. I said she lost that privilege as she chose her side. They said would I be able to sleep at night knowing she would lose her job? I said yeah. My husband pointed out how much I had done for her without any financial compensation. They said you were home anyway, One more child that was already potty trained made no difference to me over the past 4 years. I told them it did because I had many sacrifices over the years for their daughter. I also mentioned that if they couldn't convince the younger brother's wife to help out, then they had to forget about coercing me to do it. They wanted to know when I would return the stuff I was holding hostage. My husband said he was holding it hostage, and it would be returned when his sister paid up for damages. My father-in-law said that sister-in-law would be right to report the theft to the police. My husband said she could do as she pleased. At this point, my husband told them something I wasn't aware of. He said to pass on a message to his sister that he had canceled the hotel and activities, including the horse riding for his niece for the summer vacation. If he couldn't tell her to clean up her mess, because her father had told my husband who did he think he was to his daughter to boss her around, then he felt no need to pay for her specific activities since her father was unsure about their uncle-niece relationship and having the right to teach her some responsibility. This made my mother-in-law upset and she said, "You haven't done that, have you? I thought we would all have a great vacation." He said he had. They tried to make excuses like sister-in-law had a lot on her plate with losing the house and young children, but I was having none of it. I told them that her life situation was due to her own poor choices and that bringing in a 9th child into the mix was not going to make her situation better. My mother-in-law said every woman had a right to decide for themselves about their family planning. Her body, her choices, and I was not to dictate to her what she should and shouldn't do. I asked her, like you are dictating to me right now, by weaseling your way into our home under the guise of an apology? She said no, it was different. She wasn't telling me to have more or less children as she loved grandchildren. The more the merrier. I told her she couldn't expect me to look after other people's children either. The less stress I had, the merrier I was. It also comes under my body and my choice. They turned to my husband and asked him if he was really putting them through all of this because we had decided to be less amiable over a silly thing. He said scrubbing down the 2 bathrooms after his niece and sister wasn't the highlight of his life, as they were stuck making excuses and lamenting over us not joining them for the family holiday and canceling sister-in-law and her family's holiday and ruining the mood for everyone. We told them to leave politely. On Saturday morning we were woken up by someone frantically knocking on our door and ringing the doorbell. It was sister-in-law and her eldest son. My husband told me he would handle it. When he opened the door, she tried to push through, but my husband blocked her way. She was shouting loudly to let her come inside so she could knock some sense into me. She threw $300 in my husband's face and said to him, "Is she happy now, that cradle-snatching bitch? I am a year and a few months older than her and she is just over 2 years older than him." She called me a jealous whore and a few other words. She told him that I had ruined their family by manipulating him. She said now that she had returned the money, she wanted him to rebook the vacation and activities ASAP. My husband said it wouldn't happen if hell froze over. He told her to wait outside while he grabbed something. He went inside and put their stuff in a bag, except for one of the tablets that he had bought and he was still paying the insurance for. He opened the door and threw it at her. She was cursing and told him to grow the F up. She said she would report him for damaging her stuff. He told her all was caught on camera, and if she wanted to take him to court to really think of her children, as they could barely afford a roof over their house, let alone a lawyer. Before he closed the door on her face, he told her to not step foot on our property again. She left without more drama. My mother-in-law and father-in-law phoned us and tried to talk some sense to us. My husband and I had agreed to let them see our children under certain circumstances. They said they had grandparent rights. I told them that although I was no lawyer, their rights were very limited in the state we live in. If they wanted to have a relationship with their grandchildren, they would have to start respecting me and my family. Right now we are NC with the other brothers, their wives, sister-in-law, and her nuclear family. We unblocked them to send a message to them and then blocked them again. If the children of the older brother want to speak to us and spend time with us, it's fine by us. The 6-year-old can only come by if her older siblings are there to supervise her on the weekends when we have time to host them. No more dropping by as and when they wish. If they let their parents use their numbers to contact us, we will block them too. While we were sending messages to everyone and they were unblocked, the older one's wife phoned me and said she would pay me $7.50 an hour for the days I looked after her 6-year-old. I told her no thank you. I'll pass on that wonderful opportunity and good luck to you finding childcare for that amount. She texted me she would compensate me for the last 3 months too to sweeten the deal. I told her no. She begged me to reconsider as she had no one lined up for next week. I told her to figure out her own childcare. She was crying, and I have to admit it was kind of satisfactory. So if I am a bitch for that, I will own it. She will most likely lose her job, but it's not my circus, not my monkeys. The younger one's wife wondered if she could get some help with the baby when her mother went back home, as I had helped the older one. I told her no, that would not happen because I did not want more regrets in life. But when the baby grows up and wants to spend time with their uncle one-on-one, they can come by if we have time to host them. In the meantime, she could ask sister-in-law to help her when her mother left. Sister-in-law and her husband are completely blocked. Their children are on NC list as things are very complicated with their parents. My husband and I came to an agreement that we would go LC with his parents. When they do visit us, they have to follow our ground rules. When spending time with us, they can't mention or advocate on behalf of others, and they can't mention what is happening in our lives to others. If not, we would go NC with them too. What was the hardest part about growing up? A couple years ago I was the duff of my high school friend group. The Mae Whitman, for those who don't get the reference. I had baby bangs with pin straight hair and a body shaped like an AirPod. Meanwhile, my friends had curtain bangs with layered hair and hourglass figures. I dressed like Blake Lively in It Ends With Us. If you are following, not the best look, but my friends all had good style, and actually cared about what they wore every day. But I didn't care about my appearance up until I started liking boys and realized all the attention always went to my friends. I figured I could get the attention if I had an hourglass figure too, so I started going to the gym. I worked out 5 times a week with Daisy Keach routines and ate in a caloric deficit. In about a year, my body looked just like Daisy's, but the attention from boys still went to my friends. I checked to see what they had and I didn't, and I realized that my haircut was still disgusting. I mean baby bangs with straight hair. Who let me do that? I immediately booked an appointment with a hair salon and got a butterfly haircut. It framed my face so well and I looked prettier too. Still, I couldn't understand why my friends were getting more attention than me. Though to be fair, I was at a point where the nerdy kids started to fetishize me. That wasn't exactly the attention I was looking for, so I kept changing myself to be just like my friends and I finally figured it out. I saw it when I caught myself still dressing like Blake Lively's Lily Blossom Bloom. Meanwhile my friends dressed classy and looked put together. So instead of my usual crazy colors, I switched to a minimalist style. I wore solid color long sleeves, and the usual blue jeans you see all the college girls wear. This was a dramatic change, but it led to great results. I wasn't the outcast of the friend group anymore, but I felt like something was still missing. Even though I was more attractive in almost every way, there was one thing that I couldn't fix no matter what I tried. My acne. I put on sunscreen every day. I followed all the Korean skincare routines from TikTok. I even tried products like Proactive and Accutane, and though my face would clear for a month at a time, it would all come back like I never did anything. This was honestly the downfall of my progress, especially when one of our acquaintances said something that changed my life forever. She said, and I quote, "Hey Jen, honestly if you could get rid of your flaky and pimply skin you would have so much potential to be attractive." Like what? That hurt to the core. I knew how hard I worked to actually look decent. It felt like my genetics were absolutely destroying me right now. That was my breaking point, so I booked an appointment with an esthetician in my city. When I sat down in her chair, she asked me a question that left a permanent change in my life. She said, "Do you have a personalized skincare routine?" I said no because I thought you just had to find a good routine other people use. Then she said, "Okay, well before I do anything on your face, I'm going to need you to take this 3-minute bamboo quiz. It'll give you a personalized routine, then order the routine, and come back in 3 weeks. I can do a proper facial that will actually give you long-lasting results after that." I was dumbfounded. I paid this woman $100 for 30 minutes for her to just tell me that I needed to fill out a quiz, but with no hope I agreed into the 3-minute bamboo quiz. That's when I found out the 5-step routine that would change my life. When I used the products, I instantly started feeling my skin become healthier. On the website it said something about getting better skin through healthier skin. I could instantly feel the difference. While this was happening, my friends were all getting into relationships. Meanwhile, I was busy figuring out if this bamboo skincare routine was right for me. And of course my mind kept repeating what that girl said at lunch, so I kept at it, and the results were great. It felt like my skin and everything else about myself was finally improving. I was finally solving my biggest problem. I got so much confidence. I even initiated conversations with guys myself, and they were really into talking to me. I only ever talked to them when they wanted me to do their homework. In about a month, my skin was stunning, and everyone in my friend group started to notice. They quoted our acquaintance, joking that I finally got rid of my flaky, pimply skin. They asked me how I did it because I looked so pretty. I didn't want to gatekeep, so I told them about the 3-minute bamboo quiz. All of them said how cheap it was compared to their routines. They told me that they were spending like $200 for a month's supply, while this was only $160 for 3 whole months. I finally even got guys' attention by just breathing, just like my friend group. I was in a euphoric state. My duff self had died, and now I was more confident than ever. Then I finally got to talk to a guy I had always had a crush on because of his goofy smile and laid-back attitude. We hit it off very quickly. That didn't last long and I am still looking for the one. But at least I don't look like Beyoncé when she had baby bangs anymore. Couples whose wedding was a disaster. What happened? My husband almost broke up with me the week before our wedding. He was a sucker for romance and even proposed to me after having a whole singing flash mob in Times Square, so I wanted to give him the most romantic wedding ever. I started off the planning on a good note and didn't struggle with anything. But when I couldn't find the specific hydrangea that my husband was obsessed with, everything started falling apart. After that I'd spend all day and night thinking about the wedding, and I even lost sleep because I needed to find a specific tablecloth. Whenever I was up late stressing about the wedding, the only thing that could calm me down was eating a snack. So naturally, I ate so many snacks that I gained about 15 pounds in 2 weeks. But I always felt so bloated afterwards and it made it impossible to fall asleep. The lack of sleep then caused headaches and everything started taking me forever to finish. If things couldn't get any worse, everything fell apart the day of my final dress fitting. I went to the boutique with my mom and sister, and I was so excited to see myself in the dress I'd been dreaming of. But when I tried it on, the dress felt so tight I thought it would burst. My heart dropped and I immediately started panicking. I didn't see myself getting married in another dress, so this was going to mess up everything. I couldn't stop sobbing the whole car ride home. My sister tried calming me down and offered solutions like wearing my mom's wedding dress, but I didn't want that. I told them this was the dress I had to get married in, and the only way to fit into it was to starve myself and lose the weight I'd gained. I guess they weren't on board with the idea, because my fiancé found out about it and confronted me later that night. He said that I shouldn't have gone overboard to try to make the wedding perfect, because he was marrying me and that's as perfect as our wedding could get. I started crying and he hugged me, and said that a wedding will always have little mishaps no matter how hard I try to stop them, and that's okay. He said that the only thing that mattered to him right now was my health. He told me that with the help of our family members he could make sure everything was perfect, and I accepted his help when he said I couldn't keep going on like this. With the wedding so close, they did final checkups, and my husband prioritized me. He took me out for meals to make sure I ate properly, booked spa days so I could relax and unwind, and he even made me have a bedtime so that I could get enough sleep. But my body was so used to binge eating that I wouldn't be able to sleep without eating no matter how hard I tried. I would lay in pain until all my willpower left me, and then I would get up and eat until my stomach felt like bursting. Naturally, my weight wasn't coming off and I still woke up tired out of my mind. But my fiancé started researching for something that would help stop me from eating so much at night and also help me sleep better. And he knew that my favorite thing in the entire world were cookies. So it wasn't long before he showed up with some night food cookies and I gave him the biggest side eye. I reminded him that he was supposed to help me stop eating at night, not encouraging it. He was quick to say that the cookies would stop me from binge eating because they would satiate my hunger and put me to sleep, unlike the other foods I was eating. I told him that I was worried about continuing to gain weight if I was just going to keep eating at night. But he repeated himself and said that they have less calories than regular cookies and their ingredients will curb my appetite and make me go to sleep so they would help me lose weight. I caved and I ate the cookies later that night, not really expecting anything to happen, but according to my husband, I passed out just after eating 3 cookies. He said it was the fastest I had ever been asleep, and the next day, I woke up feeling refreshed. It was the best sleep I had gotten throughout the entire wedding planning, and in my life. My husband started making sure I ate the cookies every night, and whenever I started to fall asleep, he'd play with my hair to further soothe me and reassure me how perfect our wedding was going to be. After a week of eating the night food cookies, my husband said I had to try my dress on because he wanted to make sure I was losing weight. So, I tried it on and even though it was still tight, I didn't feel as much discomfort as I did when I first tried it, so I knew that I was dropping pounds. Since I was getting high-quality sleep as I continued eating the night food cookies leading up to my wedding, my body was able to raise its metabolism, which also made it so much easier to keep my gut away. I even noticed that I didn't have the urge to binge eat anymore. Just eating 3 cookies satisfied my nightly cravings, and it helped that my husband was taking me on dates in the daytime. So, there wasn't any reason for me to binge eat anymore. And since I was knocking out so fast and slept well, I had more energy and didn't need to power through with coffee. Once my eye bags disappeared, I told my husband about my progress so that I could ask about handling the wedding preparations again, but he said no before the words even left my mouth. He told me not to even think about it because our family and him were handling it perfectly well, just like I wanted. He told me to trust him and just focus on myself, so I did. I continued to eat the night food cookies, and was glad that I didn't have to rely on tubs of ice cream or meals for a family of 5 anymore, especially since I wouldn't even be able to fall asleep afterwards. And every week that I tried my wedding dress on, I could see and feel the changes that my new lifestyle and the night food cookies were having on my body. My dress wasn't tight and actually fit my body perfectly. I felt like a goddess whenever I stared at myself in the mirror, with my slim body and gorgeous dress. I couldn't wait for my husband to see me in it. Luckily, he didn't have to wait long because before I knew it, I was walking down the aisle in my dream gown feeling confident and healthy, and my husband looked at me in awe. He even mouthed that I love you to me and my heart just melted. But I also noticed that everything from the flowers to the seating arrangements to the decorations was absolutely perfect. I saw the love and care my husband had put into making sure our day was everything I wanted it to be, and I loved him more for it. But I finally realized that my husband was right. I was marrying him and that's as perfect as our wedding could get. Girls that gave the nice guy a chance, how did it go? My boyfriend wants me to get a prenup because he doesn't want me to steal all his money if we get divorced. For context, my dad is one of the most elite businessmen in the city, but he refused to give me any money to support myself. That meant that even though I was technically a Nepo baby, I didn't get any of daddy's money because my father built his business from scratch through hard work and wanted me to do the same. So, I spent all my life working hard, and by the time I was 28 I had 2 businesses that I could be proud of, just like my father. 2 years later, I could retire at 30 and would be set for life. I was financially stable and used my money to start soup kitchens and fund shelters for the homeless. I was proud of the things that my money could achieve, and I would talk to my boyfriend about it, and honestly my parents would talk about it to anyone who listened as well. I never thought anything of it, until my boyfriend, who had been supporting me ever since I started my first business, blew up in my face about it, unprovoked. He told me that he was tired of me rubbing my money in his face, and said he was going to be a huge businessman just like me, but he was going to make sure he was even more wealthy. I honestly had no idea how he was going to make that happen since he refused to work more than 25 hours a week, spent his money on brand names and subscriptions, and didn't have a dime in savings or investments. I reminded him of this, but he just said that it didn't matter how much money he spent now because he knew he was going to be a billionaire soon. He said he was so sure of it and didn't want to lose all the money he was going to make if we were to divorce in the future, so he wanted a prenup. I told him that he hadn't even proposed to me, so I didn't understand why we would be talking about a prenup. He then had the audacity to say that he's only going to propose when he gets rich. So, basically I was never going to get that rock. I told him that he was delusional if he thought I was after his money when I make more money than him. He immediately shushed me up and said he needed the prenup because I would become a gold digger the minute he makes some cash. I told him that we should continue this conversation when he gets his bank account out of the negatives. Every time he saw me after that he'd ask if I was running to daddy for money again and he'd call me a gold digger. At first, I thought I should have been more humble, especially since I knew that if he just worked as hard as me and my dad, he could definitely get to where we are now. But after his nasty comments and delusional dreams, I just wanted some answers. So, I told him we had to talk. I asked him about the prenup first, and he said that it was my dad's idea, not his. He explained that he and my dad were talking about him working at his company and my boyfriend believed his future looked bright because he was dating his boss's daughter. So, to prevent things from getting ugly later on, they decided to come up with a prenup to make sure our assets were protected. I asked him why he didn't just tell me that in the first place, and what he admitted to me broke me. He said that he felt less of a man while dating me. He told me that a man is the one that's supposed to provide and have all the money, and have a successful business, but the fact that I was the one with all that and not him disgusted him. He went on to tell me that I'm a spoiled brat who runs to daddy whenever I need something. I told him that I thought we had a good relationship, and asked him why he would say that to me. He responded that he was so sick of hearing me brag about all my money when I knew he didn't have as much as me. He said I should have been more considerate of that, but instead I was a selfish girlfriend who only had daddy's money. I reminded him that he was with me when I was just starting my first business, and that my dad basically refused to loan me a penny because he wanted me to do this on my own. He said that there was no way my dad would do that, and believed my dad secretly funded my businesses. I told him that I made good investments, studied and worked hard, and I wasn't going to let him undermine my accomplishments just because he was jealous. When he said that my success was meaningless because my dad helped, I told him that since he thinks that way then he shouldn't be taking my dad's help either. When he said that he was going to use my dad just like me, I couldn't handle things anymore and left my house. Everything he said broke me and I felt so betrayed that someone that close to me, and someone I loved so much would say such mean things to me. I drove to my parents' house and sobbed as I told them everything. My dad was furious and my mom had to stop him from going to my house to beat up my boyfriend. My dad also apologized for suggesting the prenup, and didn't know my boyfriend would say all those things. I accepted his apology, but that wasn't enough for him. He said that my boyfriend getting hired at his company was supposed to be a huge opportunity for him, but since he started acting this way he's not going to hire him anymore. I won't lie, a part of me was happy he said that. My boyfriend believed that this job was his one-way ticket to success, so taking it away from him is exactly what had to happen. My dad called him up the next day, saying that he wanted to talk to him about his future within the company. My boyfriend was all smug as he entered the office, and I had no idea why he thought my dad would choose his side in this mess and still hire him. However, it was worth it because it was hilarious seeing his jaw hit the ground when he saw me in my dad's office. The next couple of minutes were terrible for my boyfriend. My dad yelled at him nonstop, saying that he had no right to speak to me that way, that I was more successful than he would ever be, and he would never get a job in his company. He had half a mind to blacklist him entirely. I swear my boyfriend peed his pants a little. Once my dad finished ripping him a new one, I told him that I was breaking up with him and he had 48 hours to move his junk out, otherwise I was going to burn everything. He literally ran out of the office so fast because he knew the first thing I'd burn would be the PC I bought him. When everything died down, I realized how sad the whole situation really was. He was my first love and this was how he treated me, and all because I had more money than him. But I think I dodged a bullet because I was clearly a nobody to him, and nothing I did held any value. It's painful to accept that the person I loved couldn't see my worth and insulted me like that. This was my first ever heartbreak, but with time I'll learn to move on. From now on, I'm just going to focus on my business and keep building a life that I can be proud of. Update: everyone was asking me how I had 2 successful businesses in a short amount of time. For my first business, I took out a loan, which was a mistake because I nearly got myself into some serious debt. So, for my second business I decided to learn to invest using an app called Bloom Learn to invest to earn the money I needed to start it up instead. It only took a year, and it was really easy to invest, especially because I could make $25 just from referring someone. I actually sent a referral link to my boyfriend, but he never wanted to use Bloom. So I hope you guys don't make the same mistake as him because look where it got him. He's now the Dollar Tree Employee of the Month. What toxic behavior has been normalized by society? In 11th grade, one of my classmates developed a strong crush on my best friend. He'd waste his day staring at her and would pester me all the time, in order to gather some information about her. Almost everyone in the class was aware of his feelings. My best friend wasn't into dating at that time and she was crystal clear about her decision. So when this guy approached her, she politely refused. But that didn't seem to get into his mind. He aimed to try a little harder this time. He started lavishing her with unsolicited gifts and chocolates, doubled up his stalking abilities and did all the stuff that made me count him as a creep. When my best friend finally declared that it was still a big fat no from her side, this guy tried another new tactic. He amassed truckloads of sympathy from all the other classmates and asked them to persuade her. And guess what? They obeyed him. Now each one of them would request my best friend to date that guy, notice his efforts and at least give it a shot. They'd even ask her, why are you playing so hard to get? Or why are you so hard to impress? But none of them realized that she has all the rights to decide for herself. What toxic behavior has been normalized by the society? Not respecting someone's free will. Not respecting someone's personal opinions. Not respecting someone's reasons. The next time when you ask someone to join you for a movie, and if they say that they don't feel like, respect their decision. Don't tell them it will be fun or you'll miss a lot kind of stuff. It's okay to request once, but if that doesn't work, you need to know and stop.
My fiancée came out as a lesbian and told me that everything we shared together was a lie. Now everyone is telling her how strong and brave she is while no one cares about me. My ex, who I'll call Dana, and I had been together for 7 years, and I thought that she was bi from the beginning. That's what she said, and she openly told me about her past relationships with girls, but I never cared because it wasn't a problem at all to me. We never had any big fights or arguments, just small things, and we always sorted out everything. So, after 7 years of our relationship, I decided that it was the right moment to ask the big question because we were deeply in love, financially stable, and already living together. I prepared everything to make it as romantic and unique as I could, and when I finally asked her, she hesitated but then said yes. That's when the problem started, because I didn't understand why there was hesitation. When I asked her, she only replied that she was nervous, and I didn't press any further because after all, she did say yes. When it came to telling our family, it was basically only her family because I lost both my parents when I was 20 and my little sister when she was 17. We told this to her parents and our friends, but even here, some things were off because her parents were faking happiness, and I didn't understand why, while our friends were super happy and were already suggesting ideas for our wedding. 4 months passed, and we were planning our wedding when the day arrived. I came back home from work, and she was waiting for me with her bags ready. I asked her what was going on. She told me, "Listen, I know this is going to be hard for you, but I'm not bi, I'm a lesbian. My parents have known this for 2 years, which is why they weren't happy and were faking it. Please, I beg you, don't make this difficult. Just let me leave. Don't cry, don't beg me, and don't scream. Let's handle things like adults." Then she drove away. I stood there on my feet for about an hour in shock because I couldn't believe it. We went from planning our wedding to Dana coming out as a heartless and cold girl that I couldn't recognize. The worst thing is that 3 months have passed since that day, and literally no one has ever texted me or called me to ask how I was, if I was fine, or if I needed something. Not her parents, not her, since she also blocked me that day, and not even our friends. No one gives a damn about me at all. In these 3 months, I've been hospitalized 3 times because I lost extreme weight and have insomnia. I just work and come home, nothing else. While everyone is praising her for coming out, applauding her for finally realizing she was a lesbian, and celebrating her courage to be herself after years of struggling to find her true identity. Right now, I'm not even capable of being mad. I'm just in disbelief about what happened, how fast it all happened, and that no one gives a damn about me because her coming out is considered more important than her ex. Screw them all. Edit. I hope to come here again in a few months and read all this again and believe you, but right now I can't. You all seem like good people and sincere, but believe me, as much as I want to trust you, I simply can't right now. Nevertheless, I want to thank you all anyway. I'm not okay, and the 3 times I was hospitalized, I tried to unalive myself, but I'm not even good at doing that. For 3 months, I've been thinking over and over again if I was the problem, what I could do better, what I did wrong, but nothing changes. So here I am, in the middle of nowhere, seated on a sidewalk like a homeless person, reading strangers' comments on a post that I don't even know why I posted. Again, thank you all. Update 1. So, I wasn't expecting to update so soon, but like some of you folks said, somehow one of my ex-friends saw my post on TikTok, and the absolute mess started and is still ongoing right now. This ex-friend, who I will call Paul, reached out to me and basically told me that he saw the post and knew it was me because I used my ex's real name, and he was shocked to know what really happened. Apparently, Dana told my ex-friends that she came out to me as a lesbian, but I didn't take the news well and tried to lay hands and threaten her, so she told them to never contact me again, and they all believed her. However, when they saw my post, they started pressuring her to confirm if my post was telling the truth or not, and she admitted to the lie. Since Paul's text, I received a ton of texts and calls from everyone asking me how I'm doing, if I'm fine, and expressing apologies for believing Dana and not reaching out to me first. But then there's the real issue. Dana, she texted me asking for forgiveness, saying she's sorry for how badly she treated me and admitting that she invented everything because she was afraid of losing friends. Unfortunately, that's not all. I also got a text from her girlfriend, who I'll call Mary, and basically, she told me that she's sorry for Dana's behavior and for what she did. Here's the issue. She knew Dana for a year, but Dana never told her about me and always talked to her about me as a roommate, so she's considering leaving Dana. As for me, I created a new group chat including them all, even Dana and Mary, and told them that I'm not changing my mind about forgiving them. I mentioned that I was considering suing Dana, partially true because I'm not sure if I'll go through with it, and that if they, my ex-friends, were decent humans, they would have texted me asking if I was out of my mind to lay hands on Dana or just insulting me via texts if they really cared about me. Then I added some personal things about Dana and blocked them all. However, my blocking method isn't working because they continue to harass me with texts and calls from other numbers, and even getting other people to call and text me. Crazy stuff is happening, and I still can't believe this mess because I keep thinking it's all a nightmare and I need to wake up. Unfortunately, it's all true. Then, the other thing is that I finally saw a therapist today, and I don't like to admit it, but I cried a lot. I never worked on accepting that my parents and sister are no longer here, and then this thing with my ex added to it, making me explode. So, it's going to be a very long journey, and I hope to reach a point where I feel better. So, that's all for now, and I hope to update you not as quickly as now but when I'm feeling better. Thank you everyone.